In the heart of Providence, Rhode Island, there exists a courtroom unlike any other in America. It's not the marble floors or the mahogany benches that make it special. It's not even the centuries of legal tradition embedded in its walls. No, what makes Courtroom 2A extraordinary is the man who presides over it, Judge Frank Caprio, a 78-year-old jurist whose compassion has touched millions of hearts around the world. For over 3 decades, Judge Caprio has sat on the bench of the Providence Municipal Court, handling what most would consider the mundane matters of city life, parking tickets, traffic violations, code infractions. But in his hands, these simple cases become something more. They become moments of human connection, opportunities for understanding, and sometimes, as you're about to witness, profound lessons in the power of second chances. Today's story is different from the thousands of cases Judge Caprio has heard. Today, we'll witness a moment so powerful, so deeply moving, that it will shake even the judge's legendary composure. This is the story of how one case, one young man's desperate plea, brought tears to the eyes of a man known for his strength and reminded an entire courtroom why justice must always be tempered with mercy. This is the story that made Judge Caprio break down on the bench. It was a Tuesday morning in late autumn when 23-year-old Marcus Williams walked into Judge Caprio's courtroom. The October rain had been falling steadily since dawn, turning the streets of Providence into rivers of gray, mirroring, perhaps, the heavy burden Marcus carried in his chest. The courtroom was already filled with the usual cast of characters, people fighting parking tickets, merchants contesting code violations, drivers caught by red light cameras. The atmosphere was, as always, a peculiar mixture of anxiety and hope. People had heard about Judge Caprio's reputation for fairness and compassion, and many came expecting not just justice, but understanding. Judge Caprio entered through the door behind the bench at exactly 9 a.m., as he had thousands of times before. At 78 years old, he moved with the careful dignity of age, but his eyes, those warm, expressive eyes that had looked into the faces of countless citizens, still sparkled with vitality and genuine interest in the people who came before him. "Good morning, everyone," he said, his voice carrying that distinctive Rhode Island accent that had become familiar to viewers around the world. "Let's get started." The bailiff, a stern-looking man named Officer Rodriguez, who had worked with Judge Caprio for 15 years, called the first few cases. Standard fare, a parking ticket near the hospital that the judge quickly dismissed after learning the defendant had been visiting his sick mother, a business owner who had unknowingly violated a new sign ordinance that the judge waived with a gentle warning. This was the rhythm of Judge Caprio's court. Each case was handled with care, each person treated with dignity. He asked about their families, their jobs, their lives. He made jokes to ease tension. He explained the law in simple terms, and when circumstances warranted it, he showed mercy. But nothing could have prepared him or anyone else in that courtroom for what was about to unfold. Case number 2023-TC8847, Marcus Williams, multiple traffic violations. Marcus stood up from the back row, and those who noticed him might have seen a young man who looked older than his 23 years. He was tall and thin, wearing an ill-fitting suit that was clearly borrowed. The sleeves were too short, revealing bony wrists. His shoes, though polished to a high shine, were scuffed and worn at the heels. But it was his face that told the real story. Drawn, exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and heavy worries. He walked to the defendant's stand with his head slightly bowed, carrying a manila folder clutched tightly against his chest. His hands, Judge Caprio noticed immediately, were trembling. "Good morning, Mr. Williams," Judge Caprio said warmly, leaning forward slightly as was his habit when addressing defendants. He believed that body language mattered, that showing interest and engagement could ease a person's fear. "How are you doing today?" Marcus looked up and for a moment seemed surprised by the question. How many people had asked him that lately? How many had cared about the answer? I'm okay, Your Honor. Thank you for asking." Judge Caprio glanced down at the papers before him, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. "So, Mr. Williams, I see here you have quite a few violations. Let's see, running a red light, expired registration, driving with a suspended license, and he looked up with raised eyebrows. No insurance? That's serious, son. Tell me what happened. This was the moment when most people would launch into excuses, explanations, sometimes lies. Judge Caprio had heard them all over the years, but something about Marcus Williams was different. His jaw tightened, and he took a deep breath, as if gathering courage from somewhere deep within. Your Honor, I know I broke the law. I know it. And I'm not here to make excuses or tell you stories. But I am here to ask for mercy and to explain why I did what I did, even though I knew it was wrong. Judge Caprio set down his pen. In all his years on the bench, he had developed an instinct about people, an ability to sense when someone was being genuine. And everything about Marcus Williams told him that he was about to hear something important. Go ahead, son, the judge said softly. I'm listening. Marcus opened the manila folder with shaking hands. Inside were documents, medical bills, hospital discharge papers, photographs. He held them but didn't look down. Instead, he looked directly at Judge Caprio, and when he spoke, his voice came from a place of raw, unfiltered truth. Your Honor, 3 months ago, my little sister, her name's Emma, she's 8 years old, she was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. She's my half-sister, really, but she's the only family I've got left that matters. The courtroom, which had been filled with the usual ambient noise, shuffling papers, whispered conversations, the hum of the ventilation system, suddenly went quiet. Judge Caprio removed his glasses slowly, his full attention now fixed on the young man before him. Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger even as emotion threatened to overwhelm it. Our mom died when Emma was just 2 years old. Car accident. Our father, well, he's not in the picture. Never really was. It's been just me and Emma for 6 years now. I dropped out of community college to take care of her, got a job at a warehouse, and we were doing okay. Not great, but okay. Then came the diagnosis. Stage 3. The doctors at Hasbro Children's Hospital said she needed immediate treatment, chemotherapy, the whole works. I have insurance through my job, but it's minimal coverage. The co-pays alone were thousands of dollars. Then there were medications, special foods she could tolerate, missed work when I had to take her to appointments. Judge Caprio nodded slowly, his expression grave. Around the courtroom, people who had been focused on their own problems were now listening intently. Even the court reporter, a woman who had transcribed thousands of cases with professional detachment, was welling up with tears. I started falling behind on everything, Marcus said. First, it was the car insurance. I had to choose between that payment and Emma's medication. There was no choice, really. Then the registration expired because I couldn't afford the renewal. My license got suspended because of unpaid tickets I got before all this happened. Just stupid mistakes. Parking in the wrong place, stuff like that. But without money, I couldn't pay them, and the fees just kept adding up. He looked down at his hands, then back up at the judge. And the night I got pulled over for running that red light, I didn't even see it, Your Honor. I was exhausted. Emma had been in the hospital for 3 days with a fever from her last round of chemotherapy. They finally let her come home that evening, and I was so relieved, so tired, I just wasn't thinking straight. I ran the light. I know I did. And when the officer ran my information, everything came up. The suspended license, no insurance, expired registration. Judge Caprio had been listening with his hands folded before him, his eyes never leaving Marcus's face. Now he spoke, his voice gentle but probing. Mr. Williams, I understand you've been under tremendous stress, but you must understand that driving without a license or insurance puts other people at risk. What if you had caused an accident? What if someone had been hurt? It was a fair question, the kind of question any responsible judge would ask. But Marcus was ready for it. He had clearly been asking himself the same question every day. You're absolutely right, Your Honor. And that's why I'm here today. Even though coming here means missing half a day of work, which means less money for Emma's care, that's why I'm not fighting these charges or making excuses. I did something dangerous, and I knew it was dangerous every time I got behind that wheel. He pulled out a photograph from his folder and held it up. Even from the bench, Judge Caprio could see that it was a picture of a small girl with a bright smile and a bald head, clearly taken before or during her cancer treatment. "This is Emma," Marcus said, and now his voice was thick with emotion. "She's the bravest person I've ever known. She goes through treatments that would break most adults, and she never complains. She never asks, 'Why me?' She just keeps fighting. And Your Honor, I had to keep fighting too. I had to get her to her treatments. We don't have family who can help. We don't have neighbors with cars. The bus system doesn't run directly to the hospital, and trying to take a sick 8-year-old on 2 buses in winter, when her immune system is compromised, I couldn't. I just couldn't." The emotion in the courtroom was palpable now. Judge Caprio glanced around and saw that nearly everyone present was moved by Marcus's testimony. The prosecutor, a young woman named Assistant City Solicitor Judge Frank Caprio, continued to preside over Courtroom 2A, handling hundreds of cases each month with the same combination of fairness, wisdom, and compassion that had defined his career. The video of his emotional moment with Marcus Williams remained one of the most viewed courtroom videos online, introducing millions of people to a different kind of justice, one that recognized both the letter of the law and the spirit of humanity. When asked about that case in interviews, Judge Caprio always became emotional. "That young man taught me as much as I hopefully taught him," he would say. "He reminded me that courage isn't the absence of fear or the absence of mistakes. Courage is continuing to show up, continuing to do your best, continuing to love and care for others, even when everything seems impossible." The judge would often reflect on what had made him break down that day, something he had rarely done in decades on the bench. "I think it was the recognition of pure love," he explained. Marcus Williams wasn't asking for sympathy or playing for mercy through manipulation. He was simply laying bare the reality of his situation, a young man doing everything he could to save his sister's life, even when it meant breaking laws he knew were important. There was no pretense, no performance, just raw, honest, human struggle and love. How could that not move anyone with a heart? The story of Judge Caprio and Marcus Williams spread far beyond Providence, far beyond Rhode Island, even far beyond America. It was covered by news outlets in dozens of countries and translated into multiple languages. It spawned articles, blog posts, and discussions about the nature of justice, the role of compassion in law enforcement, and the importance of seeing people as individuals rather than case numbers. In the end, the story of Marcus Williams and Judge Frank Caprio is not just about one case or one moment of emotion in a courtroom. It's about the fundamental question of what kind of society we want to be. Do we want a society where rules are applied rigidly without regard for circumstance or humanity? Or do we want a society where justice is tempered with mercy, where we recognize that people are complex, that life is difficult, and that sometimes the most just action is the compassionate one? Judge Caprio chose compassion, and in doing so, he didn't undermine the law. He upheld its highest purpose. Laws exist to create order and safety, yes, but they also exist to serve people, to make our communities better, to protect the vulnerable and give everyone a fair chance at a good life. When Judge Caprio looked at Marcus Williams, he didn't just see a young man who had broken traffic laws. He saw a brother sacrificing everything for his sister. He saw courage and love and desperation. He saw his own father's struggles as an immigrant. He saw humanity in all its beautiful, messy complexity. And when he showed mercy to Marcus, he wasn't just helping one person. He was sending a message to everyone who witnessed that moment, everyone who watched the video, everyone who heard the story. He was saying, "You matter. Your struggles are real. Your love for your family is honored. And when you fall down, there are people who will help you stand back up." That is the true meaning of justice. That is the legacy of Judge Frank Caprio. And that is why, on that rainy October morning in Providence, Rhode Island, a 78-year-old judge allowed himself to cry on the bench, because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is allow our hearts to be broken open by someone else's suffering, and then do whatever we can to ease that suffering. Marcus Williams came to court that day expecting judgment. He received mercy.
Emma Williams was fighting for her life. She received hope. And Judge Frank Caprio, who had spent decades dispensing justice, received a reminder of why he had chosen this calling in the first place. In the grand sweep of legal history, the case of Marcus Williams might seem insignificant, just another municipal court matter resolved with a suspended fine. But for those who were there that day, for the millions who watched the video, and most importantly, for a 23-year-old young man and an 8-year-old sister, it was everything. It was proof that compassion still exists in the world. It was proof that good people still care about strangers. It was proof that sometimes the system works exactly as it should, not as a mechanism of punishment, but as a tool of justice in its truest, deepest sense. And it was a reminder that in any courtroom, in any moment, we have a choice: to be ruled by cold procedure or guided by warm humanity. Judge Caprio chose compassion, and in doing so, he changed lives. 1 year to the day after that emotional hearing, Judge Caprio arrived at his chambers to find an envelope on his desk. It was addressed in careful, childish handwriting. To Judge Caprio, the nicest judge in the world. Inside was a letter, written on lined paper decorated with hand-drawn flowers and stars. Dear Judge Caprio, my name is Emma Williams. You met me when my brother Marcus brought me to see your courtroom. I got to sit in your big chair and hold your hammer. Marcus says it's called a gavel. I wanted to write to tell you that the doctors say my cancer is gone. I still have to go to checkups, but I'm back in school now, and I'm in 3rd grade. My hair grew back, and it's curly now. Marcus says I look like Mom. Marcus told me what you did for us that day in court. He said you helped us when we needed it most. He said you cried because you cared about us even though you didn't know us. That made me want to be like you when I grow up. I don't know if I want to be a judge yet. I also want to be an artist or maybe a veterinarian, but I know I want to help people like you helped us. Marcus and I have been volunteering at the Children's Hospital. I paint pictures for the kids who are sick like I was, and Marcus talks to the families about how to be strong. We think about you a lot. Marcus says you changed our whole life. I think you did too. You showed us that there are good people in the world who care about kids like me and brothers like Marcus. Thank you for being so nice to my brother. Thank you for believing in us. Thank you for making things better when everything seemed impossible. I drew you a picture. It's supposed to be you sitting at your bench, but I'm not very good at drawing yet. Marcus says you'll like it anyway. Love, Emma Williams. P.S. Marcus says to tell you he finished his first semester back at community college and he got all A's. He's studying social work because he wants to help families like ours. I'm very proud of him. Judge Caprio read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down his face each time. Attached to it was indeed a drawing, a child's rendering of a judge at a bench with a heart floating above his head and the words, "Thank you for caring," written across the top in rainbow colors. He placed the letter and drawing in a frame that evening. It sits on his desk to this day, a reminder of why compassion matters, why mercy has its place alongside justice, and why sometimes the most important thing a judge can do is simply see the humanity in the people who come before him. The story of Judge Caprio and Marcus Williams continued to inspire long after that October day. Law schools began using the video as a teaching tool, prompting discussions about judicial discretion, the purpose of criminal justice, and the balance between punishment and rehabilitation. Other judges reached out to Judge Caprio, wanting to learn from his approach. Some incorporated his philosophy into their own courtrooms. In jurisdictions across the country, judges began asking more questions, showing more interest in the people before them, looking for opportunities to show mercy where appropriate. A movement began, small at first but growing, a movement towards restorative justice, towards recognizing that the goal of the legal system should not merely be punishment, but healing, not just enforcement, but restoration. Marcus Williams himself became an advocate. After completing his degree in social work, he was hired by a nonprofit organization that helps families navigating medical crises. He speaks at conferences and community events, telling his story and Emma's story, always emphasizing the moment when Judge Caprio showed them mercy. Judge Caprio didn't just dismiss some tickets that day, Marcus tells audiences. He dismissed the shame I was carrying. He dismissed the belief I had that I was alone in the world. He dismissed the idea that the system was only there to punish people like me. And in dismissing all of that, he gave me back my hope. He gave my sister a brother who could keep fighting for her instead of being crushed under the weight of fines and penalties. He gave us a future. Emma, now cancer-free for over 2 years, does indeed paint. Her artwork, bright, hopeful scenes of families and communities helping each other, has been featured in several local galleries. A portion of proceeds from every sale goes to the Children's Oncology Unit at Hasbro Children's Hospital. And she never forgot her promise. Every month, she and Marcus returned to the hospital with her paintings, handing them out to children undergoing treatment, offering them the same gift Judge Caprio had offered her family: hope, beauty, and the knowledge that someone cares. In interviews and public appearances, Judge Caprio often speaks about what he calls the philosophy of compassion in justice. His words have resonated with millions. People sometimes think that compassion and justice are opposites, that to be compassionate means to be soft on crime or to let people escape consequences. But that's not what compassion in justice means. Compassion means understanding the full context of a person's actions before deciding on consequences. It means recognizing that people are not defined by their worst moments or their biggest mistakes. It means acknowledging that circumstances